So, Bad Bunny has finally released his latest record, DeBÍ TiRAR MáS FOToS. Bad Bunny has always been an artist who's been trying to change his craft, change his style with every single like record that he releases. And I really had to appreciate Bad Bunny for really like kind of changing up his formula and style for every single record, especially considering how many of his counterparts just don't care or just don't even try to do the bare minimum of like making something slightly more different for the next record. It seems like they're just kind of like copy pasting a lot of the same formulas. And well, sure, I will say that Bad Bunny, it's not like he's tied to a creator in the sense of like changing it like that much, you know. But I will say that he tries to at least make it a bit more interesting. And a bit more different than the previous record. So, kind of fast forwarding into this newer era of Bad Bunny, he released two singles before this new record came out in a short film, which I will get to talk about for in a little while. But yeah, the two singles, El Club and Pitoro de Coco, those two singles I think were all right when they came out. I think like those are supposed to be like the demos. Like they're supposed to be like the teasers of like what's to come for the record, and listening to them like back to back, it's like I don't understand what's going on. Like he wants to go electronic, and then he wants to go like very like traditional music, music for Puerto Rico. And I think like after like listening to this record, it was like it makes much more sense, especially with how with like the stylistic direction of how the tracks are and how they fit into the record. Since the record, which again I will talk about later on, has I think a way of very transitioning between songs in a very like clear and distinctive way. And I want to talk about the short film, that he launched, kind of like self-titled, "DeBÍ TiRAR MáS FOToS." It's a short like 10-minute film that you could probably check out on YouTube on his YouTube channel, and it garnered a lot of discussion and a lot of like commentary between Puerto Ricans and just in people like just in general of like America or just like Americans, whoever you want to talk about. But the general like message, I think, or one of the main points that Bad Bunny had in that short 10-minute film was about sort of a near future where gentrification and this modern day colonialism of these very rich Americans, or I guess foreigners, who are kind of coming into Puerto Rico and buying a lot of territory to the point where it's like almost like a monopoly, like a Rockefeller-esque scenario, is actually hurting people more than it is like aiding people in the sense of like of an economic sense as well, but also like just in terms of neighborhoods being like gentrified and destroyed and just being rebuilt as a sort of a safe haven for millionaires or for more people that high tax bracket, if you want to call it. It's a problem that he points out in the short film as we kind of see his old man who kind of travels around his neighborhood, his block, trying to go to a panaderia, try to get some bread, try to get some sandwiches, quesito, all that stuff. And it's an absurd amount of like number. It's an insane amount of number he has to pay for these items, and the items that he's asking for, like it's like there's a lot of options for things that are just like, if you live in Puerto Rico, like, like you know what he's asking. It's not like that complicated as like the person who was attending the old guy was asking him. But I think the general message, at least for that scene and for once again, the general short film is that there's not a Puerto Rico without Puerto Ricans. But there's a lot of dialogue and talk about it, and it is a very important theme that is later introduced into the record and kind of explained with much more sincerity, which now we can actually get to the topic of the record. So the DeBÍ TiRAR MáS FOToS has like a lot of messages and themes. I think this is definitely like his strongest work in terms of a narrative, in terms of a concept. He is really, really in your face in terms of what he wants to say and convey, which is a huge departure from Nadie Sabe, in which Nadie Sabe, he was just very like kind of basic in terms of his stuff that he was saying. He was just stuff that we knew. It was just much more flexing. But in terms of like, him giving the people what they wanted, giving the trap money that people asked for, since we were kind of deprived from it ever since 2016 or 17. And this album was more like, I gave you guys that, so I'm going to do my own thing, do what I wanted to do. And I'm going to, do a record that is for the people, that is for Puerto Rico in general. It's much more for Puerto Rico than it is an international release, especially if you want to compare it to Un Verano Sin Ti or his more commercial project. Like this, more of the slang that's being used in here and the definitions and just the way he's approaching things is very Puerto Rico based. It's like if you don't live in Puerto Rico, you just don't have like ancestry or I guess people who are Puerto Ricans or who have at least mentioned some of these things and explained it, you're gonna be lost throughout this record. It's like a very, very, very cultural record, and he's really abrasive with the traditional sound because tracks like "Baile INoLVIDABLE," which is a 6-minute kind of full-length track where he's flexing his traditional music, traditional Puerto Rican music, most of in this track. It's a full-on 6-minute track, which has a whole group kind of backing him up. He's just narrating about this one experience that he had with this girl, as always, and kind of saying that it was a very unforgettable experience for him personally. The way he danced with this girl, the experience, it was very lively, and he really paints this nice portrait with the music that's playing in the background, the lyrics, even though some lyrics are very explicit, but it's usually the feeling, the vibe that you get off of it, how he wants to express it, that really kind of like drives this record forward. The track WELTiTA featuring Chewy really paints this nice, vivid, almost like beachy-esque scenario in which he's like in the beach, he's with his girl, he's just kind of like just dancing and vibing in general. They're just chilling, they're just having drinks and stuff, and they just want to like enjoy the view, want to enjoy the scenery, everything. And it reminded me of like just a song that could have been easily Un Verano Sin Ti. To be fair, this entire record feels like a sequel to Un Verano Sin Ti in a way. It feels even at points much more summerish than Un Verano Sin Ti, because there's a lot of guitars in this record where it's almost playing like in a scale or in a melody that you would hear like in a sort of a more Caribbean islandish type of music. He really opens this record up. Like I kind of got ahead of myself. I didn't even talk about the opening, but the opening reminds me a lot of Titi Me Preguntó. He returns with his dembow / reggaeton type of fusion, and he is loud and energetic with it. This song kind of seems more dedicated for the New Yorkers, which that was very cool, because just the amount of Puerto Ricans that live in New York, and he just kind of like showing love to that side. And I think Titi Me Preguntó, the music video was I think recorded in New York, if I'm not mistaken. And he shows like a lot of appreciation for New Yorkers and stuff, since it's like a safe haven for a lot of Puerto Ricans who live in the United States. But yeah, I think this track is energetic. It's a bop. It's a banger. The final half is a bit strange. Just the but you probably understand what I'm saying. The last 30 seconds is almost like that, and it's very weird. But I think the beat in general is just incredible. It's insane, and he really just goes off. WELTiTA PR continues the storyline of him trying to bring this girl from the U.S., I'm assuming from New York, and just showing him what's how the culture is in Puerto Rico, how the dances are in Puerto Rico, all the bunch of cultural exchanges. Basically, it's almost like a whole cultural exchange, basically, or just something along those lines. But in the end, it's really just a banger of a song. A banger reggaeton song from Bad Bunny. It's not even 3 minutes long. It's a pretty short song, but it feels longer. But the beat is just like everything. I'm pretty sure it's produced by Tiny, because you could just feel the magnitude of those synthesizers pouring into the mix, those loud, very nicely mixed drums, and just the energy that Bad Bunny circulates throughout the track. It's just, he is locked the hell in. And thankfully, that's not the only cut that we have from Tiny that's produced in this record. If I'm not mistaken, Perfumita Nuevo, featuring Right Now, is also produced by Tiny. And I think even in this specific track, the beat is like incredible. Like, again, like the iconic synthesizers that we know Tiny for, it's just lurking around this track. It's very beautiful. It's very like just flamboyant in a way. It kind of reminds me of a song that Mora could have easily, taken and just used for a record of his. I think the issue that I have with this song is that both of their voices, both Bad Bunny and Right Now's voices and register, it's a bit too low for the type of vibe that the beat kind of sets. I was expecting something much more energetic, much more playful. That's why I kind of said Mora, or even like Jaco, or Rao. Like some of those artists would probably, like, I guess, express themselves a bit more melodically, or a bit more like just fine-tuned or much more expressive. One of the most interesting collaborations from the record was with Omar Courtz and DeBÍ with the track VeLDÁ. This song almost feels like an Omar Courtz and DeBÍ song featuring Bad Bunny. I don't know why, but it's just like I kind of forget that Bad Bunny is in the track because the amount of space that Omar Courtz and DeBÍ occupy throughout the song. And it's still a great song at the end. Don't get me wrong. It's just an unusual song the way it's structured. It really takes a lot of time with the features to really like just take over the entire song. I really think everybody did a great job. I think that Omar Courtz and DeBÍ did a very, very good job. It could have easily been on their last records. If anything, it's just like one of those type of bops. And it's really nice that Bad Bunny kind of wanted to bring in that type of new wave type of vibe in this record. You know, again, like combining the traditional music and sort of the faces and voices that we've heard before, and kind of showing some more newer faces for people who might not recognize them. Coming back to one of the singles that I mentioned, El Club, it really clicked with me listening to this record because just this song being the song after VeLDÁ, I don't know why, but it feels like a smooth transition. And I don't know if the single version and the album version are different. Probably not. But it felt different in terms of the vibe that it was portraying. I don't know why, but like listening to it again in terms of this record, it feels much more appropriate than listening to it apart. You can hear like the switch ups being much more natural. You can hear it fitting in the track list much more naturally, and it doesn't feel like so out there and awkward at first. And I don't know, I think the track listing in general of this record is really good. Sequencing wise, it's very layered, it's very structured, and it makes sense as to how these tracks are heading. We'll say there are some moments which are kind of funny in terms of how the song TURiSTA, which is about Bad Bunny kind of being lost after this breakup that he had with this girl, and him feeling like almost like a tourist, kind of like just roaming around aimlessly, kind of lost in general. Transitions to Café Corrón featuring Los Pleneros de la Cresta, which is an up lively song which is about getting drunk and having fun with the homies, and it has one of the best like sounds of the entire record, and I would say the entire just discography in general. Like this, it feels alive, it feels very polished, and it sounded like you had to be there for the recording of the track because you could tell how much energy and liveliness was translated throughout the song. And just that song coming after such a depressing song, TURiSTA, is just it's so funny thinking about it in paper. Bad Bunny also does his standard reggaeton things that he usually does with the track KETU TeCRÉ or Close Friends, in which both of those tracks it dwells more into the usual formula that we know him for, in terms of delivering once again just simple reggaeton bangers that are just gonna be stuck in your head melodically. I think KETU TeCRÉ it runs a bit too long for its runtime. It could have maybe used like an extra feature or something, so it could just like have a much better flow. But overall, it's an okay song. The track Boquete seems to be getting a lot of popularity between Bad Bunny fans, and I could really understand why. I think vocally, it's one of his best tracks in general. How he sings, I think the vocals are just very smooth. They're very expressive, and it doesn't seem like he's abusing the auto-tune to the point that it's just terrible to listen to. But I do have to say that I'm not a huge fan of the progression. I think the track has some interruptions in which it's almost like spoken word or just something happens that kind of like just diminishes the progression from the song, and it feels a bit annoying at times, and it doesn't let the song, I guess, shine the way it wants it to shine. But I think the vocals really is like the core centerpiece of what makes this song at least kind of interesting. Going back to the track listing of this record, thinking about the 3-track Café con Ron, Pitorro de Coco, and Lo que le pasó a Hawaii, it could have been much more intentional from Bad Bunny. Actually, even TURiSTA. But thinking about like those 3 or 4 tracks back to back, it feels very intentional. Pitorro de Coco have embracing the sort of traditional music that you would hear almost like in a Puerto Rican Christmas party or Los Días de Reyes, something of that type of slower BPM, laid back tempo with heavy percussion and very traditionalistic music, traditionalistic Puerto Rican music. I think one of the most interesting songs in this record, moments in this record, was a track Lo Que Le Pasó a Hawaii, in which Bad Bunny kind of expresses sort of like paranoia-esque view or potential dark future that Puerto Rico might have. And he compares it to Hawaii, which the translation for the title is literally like what happened to Hawaii, in terms of Hawaii becoming a state for the United States. And I think some of the cultural aspects of Hawaii kind of fading away and being much more Americanized and losing its sort of traditional values in a sense. Again, you can correct me if I'm wrong in terms of the Hawaii segment, but I know Bad Bunny's point is that he doesn't want Puerto Rico to become sort of another state, or I guess completely colonized, in the sense that the core values of Puerto Rico are gone. They diminish and they fade away, and it's like the culturalistic and just traditional things that had Puerto Rico going is just like it dissipated. It's not Puerto Rico anymore. That's like, I think, the main theme that he wanted to convey with the track. I think progression wise, instrumentally, it's kind of slow how it progresses, but I think he wants you to pay attention to what he's saying and what he's trying to convey. Again, I think pen wise, lyrically, it's a very interesting track. It's one of his best written tracks for sure. I just think that in terms of me kind of revisiting the song, it's a bit unlikely in comparison to the other songs throughout this record, but it's still very interesting and well thought out kind of commentary-esque track. The next track, EO, hopefully I pronounced it correctly, it is a banger. Bro, that beat is like crazy. It's like one of the craziest beats I've heard since Punto 40 by Raúl Alejandro, like for a reggaeton song. Like that was insane. I don't know if it was produced by Tiny, probably was, who knows, but I think the way that was the sample was interpolated, just the vibe that Bad Bunny brings in general, it's like wild and sporadic, and the beat kind of like just changes and just does some other things. It's an insane instrumental. It's one of the best beats that he's ever rapped or sang on, and it's just entertaining from just beginning to end. Self-titled track, DeBÍ TiRAR MÁS FOToS. It's a much more melancholic track from Bad Bunny, in which he's kind of like lamenting, going back at the times in which he wished he could have like taken more pictures, so he could, I guess, remember more of the experiences that he had throughout his life. Kind of like calling back to that short film in which the older man can't remember most of the experiences that he had because he thought that living in the moment was a better way, but he kind of realized that he should have taken more pictures so he could kind of come back to those memories and have a clearer view of it, instead of relying it solely on memories, since when you get older you kind of tend to forget things, even more important things that happened in your life. And that just seems to be like the core message throughout this song as well, in which is he's wishing he'd taken more pictures to have more memories to share with. Final track, La MuDANZA, it basically opens up with Bad Bunny's origin story, in a way, of how his parents sort of met and how them moving from one town to another was like the greatest thing that happened, because he was born, and the experiences that he had when he was a kid and how he was growing up and how that helped him cultivate who he is as a person, how family, culture, tradition helped shape him to become the person that he is today, which I found to be very powerful and poetic. And then this song switches into a much more traditional Puerto Rican song with this very lively orchestra, lively just band and group that's just playing. It just gets me moving. It's very energetic. There's a very interesting one-liners in which she says things like "Quieren quemar mi barrio" or "Quemaron la bandera de Puerto Rico y por eso es que siempre lo traigo conmigo." I'm sort of paraphrasing what he said, but the general idea is that he is sort of expressing his ways of like how the U.S. kind of treated Puerto Rico for a very long time as like this like bastard cousin almost, like this bastard kid that they just didn't want but they adopted, or they just had. And he's expressing, like, especially with like the bandera part, which is the flag. Of like, since historically speaking, it is true that there were Puerto Ricans who were arrested and sometimes killed for even showing any sort of patriotism towards their own flag. And it was like that for a long time, which is ridiculous, obviously, but that's a historical lesson. This is why you should educate yourself with Puerto Rican history. But yeah, he's just mentioning these things, kind of saying, you know, I am the way I am. I'm expressive about my love for the culture, my love for Puerto Rico, because there was a time where I would have been persecuted for this. You know, my ancestry, like you know, my ancestors, they were killed over this. They were killed for expressing love. So this is why I'm gonna act the way I act. This is why I critique the way I critique, and a bunch of stuff like that. And I think that that's a very expressive way that Bad Bunny tackles this track, and kind of wraps up very nicely the point and message of this entire record. But I don't know. For me personally, I think this record is really good. It's very. It really wants to try to like make you understand something. Bad Bunny tries his hardest to at least shed some light into what's going on, try to educate you, so try to bring in some Puerto Rican history, educate people internationally, not just like Americans or whatnot, kind of more of an international scope. And I love that he's bringing these themes, these topics into the limelight. He's trying to bring a debate. He's trying to spark a debate, trying to get people to conversate about these topics. And I find it to be very empowering, because I think it's been a while since a lot of people just don't understand. It's been a long time since a lot of people just kind of keep asking the same stupid questions of like, what is the Puerto Rican history and how it's attached to American history and just international and whatever. So if you guys like this, I want you guys hit it. Let me know in comments down below. Let me know what are your thoughts on this record. I would love to hear them. I'd like to kind of like just see how everybody's feeling this record. Like this video if you enjoyed this review. Subscribe to the notification bell on so you miss an upload from me. And yeah, see you guys next time. Peace out, everybody, and stream DeBÍ TiRAR MÁS FOToS.